Fallen by Karin read by Tara Ward. Faith Mitchell dumped the contents of her purse onto the passenger seat of her Mini, trying to find something to eat. Except for a furry piece of gum and a peanut of dubious origin, there was nothing remotely edible. She thought about the box of nutrition bars in her kitchen pantry, and her stomach made a noise that sounded like a rusty hinge groaning open. The computer seminar she'd attended this morning was supposed to last 3 hours, but that had stretched into 4.5, thanks to the jackass in the front row who kept asking pointless questions. The Georgia Bureau of Investigation trained its agents more often than any other agency in the region. Statistics and data on criminal activities were constantly being drummed into their heads. They had to be up to date on all of the latest technology. They had to qualify at the range twice a year. Usually, she appreciated the agency's thoroughness. Today, all she could think about was her 4-month-old baby and the promise Faith had made to her mother that she would be back no later than noon. The clock on the dash read 10 after 1 o'clock when she started the car. Faith used Bluetooth to dial her mother's number. She got a busy signal. Her mother had voicemail. Everybody had voicemail. Faith couldn't remember the last time she'd heard a busy signal on the telephone. She hung up and tried again. Still busy. Faith steered with one hand as she checked her BlackBerry for an email from her mother. Before Evelyn Mitchell retired, she had been a cop for just shy of 4 decades. You could say a lot about the Atlanta force, but you couldn't claim they were behind the times. Evelyn had learned how to use email before her daughter had. She'd carried a BlackBerry for almost 12 years. But she hadn't sent a message today. Faith dialed her mother's cell phone number. Evelyn's voicemail picked up. "Mom, I'm on my way home. Just call me," Faith said, worry needling the edge of her brain. Without thinking, she glanced into the back of the Mini. She could see the pink liner of Emma's empty car seat. "Idiot," she whispered to herself. Her mother had an identical baby seat in her own car. She could be out running errands. This was probably a simple case of separation anxiety. Faith had been back at work for a little over 2 months, but still, every morning when Faith left Emma at her mother's, her heart shook in her chest. She was more irritable than usual at work, especially with her partner, Will Trent, who either had the patience of Job or was setting up a believable alibi for when he finally snapped and strangled her. She couldn't recall if she had felt the same anxiety with Jeremy, her son, who was now a freshman in college. Faith had been 18 when she entered the police academy. Jeremy was 3 years old by then. Thanks to 2 minutes of poor judgment in the back of a movie theater, Faith had gone straight from puberty to motherhood without any of the usual stops in between. At 18, she had relished the idea of earning a steady paycheck so that she could move out of her parents' house and raise Jeremy the way that she wanted. Leaving him in daycare had seemed like a small price to pay. Faith dialed Evelyn's numbers again. All brought the same negative response. She could feel her stomach flip, but Evelyn was probably fine. Still, Faith was sweating despite the mild March weather. This couldn't just be about the baby or her mother. Faith had been diagnosed with diabetes less than a year ago. She was religious about measuring her blood sugar, eating the right things, making sure she had snacks on hand. Except for today. That probably explained why her thinking had gone sideways. She just needed to eat something, preferably in view of her mother and child. Evelyn still lived in the same house Faith and her older brother, Zeke, had grown up in. The single-story ranch was located in an area of Atlanta called Sherwood Forest, which was nestled between Ansley Park, one of the wealthiest neighborhoods in the city, and Interstate 85, which offered the constant roar of traffic. The street planners had unabashedly embraced the Sherwood concept. After taking a hard left onto Lionel, Faith crossed Friar Tuck, took a right on Robin Hood Road, coasted through the fork at Lady Marianne Lane, and checked the driveway of her own house on the corner of Doncaster and Barnesdale